Welcome to the annual symposium of the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, SRAG's Rotary Pre-Convention event, Friday, June the 11th, 2021, The New Environment. This is session 2 of biodiversity, producing food without damaging the life that sustains us. Our second speaker is past District Governor Una Hobday. Una was the first female president of a Rotary Club, the Rotary Club of Hollywood, Western Australia, in 1992. Also, she was the first female district governor in the Southern Hemisphere, District 9540 in 1999. She has held many Rotary district roles in Western Australia and then Tasmania, having moved to the island state in 2001, where she met Bruce French as a member of the Rotary Club of West Launceston. In 2002, the Hobdays moved to Hobart, where she continued her heavy involvement with Rotary in the Rotary Club of North Hobart, District 9830. Her working life commenced as a general nurse at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. In later years, she has fulfilled administrative roles in health, such as the District Health Appointment Manager of Alcohol and Drug Service and the State Manager of Adoption Services. In 2019, Una was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for her achievements and merit in service to Australia and humanity through community service organisations. Una is the chair of the Plant Food Solutions Rotary Action Group and the non-profit Learn Grow Services to help beat malnutrition by growing food locally. Now, if you have questions for Una during her presentation, please leave them in the webinar Q&A. Una, the stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Come on. My topic is solutions to malnutrition and food security. We exist because we care that every minute of every day, 5 children under the age of 5 die from malnutrition-related causes. We care that world hunger is on the rise. In 3 years, it's gone from 804 million to 821 million. 1 in 8 adults worldwide is obese. We know that girls who are born malnourished and become stunted as children will often become malnourished mothers, and the cycle then repeats itself. This cycle can be broken, empowering women through education so that they understand what nutritious food is, why their bodies need it, and how to access it. There are countless statistics, and as a whole, they're absolutely overwhelming. But for the Food Plant Solutions Committee, each of these individuals was somebody's little son or daughter, somebody's little brother or sister. They mattered then and they still matter. The upshot is there is a significant need to address hunger, malnutrition and food security. And clearly what we've been doing through aid programs for decades is a short-term fix only. What are our core values? Food Plant Solutions Project Committee has a set of core values that guide everything we do, and each of them is non-negotiable. Integrity, we say what we mean and we mean what we say. If it's not something we'd like people to know about, we won't do it. Collaboration, we seek first to understand and then to be understood. We acknowledge with thanks and appreciation the trust that our supporters put in us and do not take it for granted. And we respect our volunteers and our staff. Everyone is equal and everyone matters. So what do we do? Formed in 2007, Food Plant Solutions Rotary Action Group creates science-based educational materials that explain what nutritional food is, why human bodies need it and how to grow and use it. Our publications present scientific evidence in plain English. which are then tailored to all levels of literacy. They're designed to empower people, but particularly women, so that they can knowledgeably choose what plants to grow and eat that will nutritiously feed themselves and their families. We focus on what are often termed neglected or underutilised plants, plants that we consider could be potentially important food plants for a country or a region. Because of their nutritional value, they're already growing in and adapted to the environment, and their superiority to imported foods and plants. Tasmanian agricultural scientist and officer of the Order of Australia recipient, Bruce French, has spent his life creating the world's largest database of edible plants. It currently contains over 32,000 edible plants for all countries of the world. We draw on that Food Plants International database to identify information on what we consider could be potentially important food plants for a country because of their nutritional value and because they're suited to the conditions. So what differentiates us? We are unique for some reasons. Our approach is based on science, but really it's as simple as growing the right plant in the right place if you understand that science. We don't send people into country, but instead build linkages with existing providers. There are countless aid organisations already working in every country. If we sent people in, this only adds duplication and significant costs. Because of our approach, we're very low cost. How do we do our work? The most important components in our project is a local program partner. They will be established and understand ways to engage with their community and therefore can empower them to act. Our primary method of delivery is information through a creation of a field guide titled Potentially Important Food Plants of a Country. Each guide contains plants from all major food groups, all high in nutrients. We focus on plants that require minimal inputs, that's minimal water, fertiliser and chemicals, etc. And with that in mind, we seek to avoid commercially grown crops unless they're also significant foods growing for local household consumption. The field guide contains information on sustainable methods for growing plants, why soil is so important, and how to look after and improve it. The guide can and is translated into local languages often, which helps make information accessible to more people. Using the field guide as a foundation, other primarily pictorial publications can be created. Feedback from our program partners informs us that recipients of these publications absolutely love them. How information is used? Well, what we provide depends on our program partner. They have the local knowledge, networks and resources. For any program to succeed, one thing is key. Our program partners must invest in it. This does not mean necessarily financially, but for success, they must have embraced it, believe in it and be fully committed to making it happen. This ensures dignity and empowerment. One way that's proving to be very successful is through the creation of school gardens, which helps reduce malnutrition whilst educating the next generation on sustainable, nutritious food production. I'm now going to outline some case studies. A program in Vietnam, which you can see here, commenced in 2012 with our program partner AOG and has been so well received, it has expanded from 2 trial gardens to now encompass 2 provinces and 14 schools, which directly impact over 3,000 children and approximately 400 adults. Some of the results are these. The students at the school enjoy benefits of the plants they've grown as they're provided with a nutritious lunch each day. Families are now duplicating those school gardens at home. The schools are saving money each month from not having to buy food, which means that money can be redirected to other necessities. There's also been a significant increase in enrolments as people and parents feel much more confident in the school's ability to provide nutritionally for their children, which in turn frees up parents to increase their household income as they have more time to work. But the most important outcome of this is malnutrition has significantly reduced. Our latest results for a 12-month period show a reduction in malnutrition from 40% to 100% across 8 schools. Not only does this show impact, but it shows that we're not a quick fix. Sustainable change takes time. Let's go back one. All right. The Miraval Foundation in the Philippines was over 10 years ago formed with their main objective: we take people out of poverty permanently. We commenced communications with the Miraval Foundation in 2013, and in 2018, the Philippine president decreed that every community must establish a communal garden for the same reasons we're championing, and ask for our assistance. We had a field guide, potentially important food plants of the Philippines, which they reviewed and we updated. Then they requested 4 picture guides and we set about trying to raise the money. District designated funds and our club helped that. The Miraval Foundation provides the seeds and other planting materials in accordance with our publications. The information on each publication is discussed once a month at a family development centre. Tools that you provided are very informative and beneficial to the members of our community. With these tools, it will be easier for us as grassroots workers to design programs that will help us combat malnutrition and provide our people with ideas on how to sustain our food supply. The photos here were taken in that garden that was established with FPS publications. And of that time, there were 23 plant varieties in this garden and 12 families were benefiting with 75 family members. But in 2020, a tornado ripped through the whole of these gardens that were the first gardens planted. The Miraval Foundation wrote us a letter a couple of months later and said they unfortunately couldn't continue this garden because the money they had to rebuild all of the housing and all of the other projects that they had. I contacted past international director Rafi Garcia in the Philippines, and he immediately, to my surprise, wrote back and said, please send me the bank account details and I'll pay for their the things they need for the next 12 months. And that's what he did. And the Rotarians in the Philippines nearby are helping to rebuild this garden. So the next year should be interesting to see what happens. The next one's a project alleviation of malnutrition in Papua New Guinea. We're working with a Dr. Russ Stevenson, a Rotarian from Nambour, Queensland, who commenced a 3-year project with the assistance of a Rotary Global grant. The aim is to improve the nutrition of babies and mothers, focusing on empowerment through education, enabling participants to understand the link between nutrition and good health. The project is in the very impoverished nomad Moogaloo area in PNG, which is estimated that 54% of the children are stunted and 14% of them are wasted. The results to date after the first year A 2-week training workshop was held to train volunteers on healthier, stronger, smarter babies, or in brackets, the alleviation of malnutrition. Expectations were exceeded when 55 people undertook the training, 20 more than expected. From the workshop, 15 teams of 1 to 4 instructors were formed to teach project lessons to villages across the region. To date, 41 village workshops have been held and more are planned. Village workshops have been attended by 8,469 participants, representing 2,030 families. Dr. Stevenson himself has visited 8 of the village for up to a week and run revision workshops. He's also inspected village home gardens and provided advice on how to improve gardens. He's visited schools to teach the school students about the importance of good nutrition to their development and to their learning. He's walked for miles and miles over muddy grounds to get to these schools. Really an amazing man. Starting malnutrition surveys were taken and further ones will be undertaken in 2021, so we'll get outcomes at the end of this year. A major part of the project now involves encouraging villagers to adopt a better diet and reinforcing awareness that children need essentials to grow strong and healthy. John Sinamona came to Australia as a refugee from Rwanda, following time in a refugee camp. His sisters were raped and murdered, and his parents murdered along with his extended family in the war between the Tutsis and the Hutus. He went to university in Sydney and studied agricultural science and business studies, married Sabrina, who he met at university, and they have one gorgeous child. He dreamed of going back to Rwanda to work towards peace and food security by developing gardens on the land he still owned. He said he could name 20 or more families whose parents were involved in the murder of his family, but now they have children as he does, and they did not participate. It's time to move on, he says. He asked for our assistance and we produced the range of documents that I've talked about. Now he has an education facility and the gardens have begun. He now has an institute, the Mustard Seed Institute, funded by other countries, and has a massive community garden. And he employs the families involved in the murders of his family. Surely food security and peace work well together. Another project we have is called Fresh Food for Families. Imagine you're an immigrant to a country in contrast to all that you're familiar with. You're keen to be a good provider for your family, and the idea of growing fresh fruit and vegetables is part of that. But where do you start? Fresh Food for Families is a workshop that was developed to support immigrants, or new Tasmanians as we call them, to learn how to grow, nurture, harvest and prepare nutritious fresh foods in this climate, where both plants and climates are new to them. Whilst this workshop was developed for immigrants, its usefulness goes far beyond supporting newly arrived migrants. The workshop can be used in schools, in community centres, in med sheds, in communities. It's for any group which wants to help others to learn how to grow and eat nutritious food. The workshop's divided into 4 smaller sessions, and the day the participants attend each. They cover the basics of growing fresh food, with the assumption that participants are mostly inexperienced. Lunch is provided, as are all the materials, gardening gloves, adults, some hand tools, fertiliser samples and information sheets. Participants take home all of these, as well as pots planted during the day. We've seen participants from the workshop become so much more involved in the community and benefit from growing their own fresh produce. But at the beginning, we decided we really needed to produce a manual so that anybody else could develop this workshop. And so that's what is produced, and it can be downloaded from our website, which will walk you through easy to follow sets of instructions on how to conduct a Fresh Food for Families event. And so many of those are now around the world. But COVID-19 began, and it's affected all of us in some ways. And for some, the impact will be long lasting and dire. The World Food Programme has estimated that the number of people facing acute food insecurity will increase by 140 million in 2020 as a direct result of COVID-19. I can't imagine what it must be like to have to worry about how I'm going to feed myself and my family. And I can't imagine what it must be like to hear children crying from hunger in exhaustion. Quite possibly there are people in your community, as there are in mine, who are wondering how they're going to feed themselves and their families because of COVID-19. By growing some of their own food will give them something positive to engage in, and importantly, nutritious food. For those who've lost employment, this helps to give them something immediately to focus on, and in very little time they could be benefiting from their effort. What's more, gardening is proven to be good for our mental health, which is understandably a huge issue at the moment. We can provide a soft leaflet for you to print and distribute that's specific to the region you live in. It would contain the following information: 15 edible plants, 3 from each major food group, that are known to grow in your area, that are high in the most beneficial nutrients. Each plant will have the following information included: common name, scientific name, key points regarding use, key points regarding cultivation, information on nutrients and why they're important, and information on how to start the garden. This leaflet that would allow anyone to start their own garden, whether it be in a pot, in an apartment, or turning over some lawn in a yard. For little effort, it can have such a positive impact. We've created many of these for around the world, and the positive feedback for them has been incredible. So I'd like to finish with a quote from Buzz Aldrin. If we can conquer space, surely we can conquer childhood hunger. We know we can with your help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Una. There are a couple of questions I'd like to pose to you that have come through the chat and the Q&A. So firstly, how do we get in touch? How do people in country get in touch with your in-country collaborators? So rather than in Tasmania, how do people in, say, India get in touch with Plant Food Solutions in India?
There isn't a Plant Food Solutions person in India. How we've been in contact with India a lot, and we've produced a lot of brief guides for many areas. They contact us on the internet at our info@foodplantsolutions.org, and then we put them in touch with the groups of NGOs or NGOs that we know that we work with in their areas, or Rotary clubs, and the Rotary clubs help them, the other groups, have connection with agronomists in the area, or government bodies that Carolyn knows about that work in the area. An example of this is that a district up in the Punjab had a changeover dinner last July, and there were 400 participants who walked in and out of the Zoom meeting, which was an amazing process for me. But the district governor then announced that everybody in that district, a bit like the president of the Philippines, must put in a garden. So we got so many requests from a whole lot of areas in the Philippines then to do the brief guides for them. And then Carolyn helped them with connections that we had through the Philippines, through their universities, and those kind of connections. So people don't get in touch with people in country, they always start coming to us first, and we branch out and put them in touch with others. But mostly the people who contact us are NGOs who has found out about us from the net or Bioversity or one of the universities, and they tell them about us, and then they contact us that way. So most of our work actually is done with NGOs in country.
So do you want to start working with Rotary clubs and districts within countries?
Oh, we'd love to, if only. We beg, we borrow, we steal. Not quite, we don't steal, but we beg and borrow to do that. We talk to Rotary clubs in countries. We talk to districts in countries, but because this is not a short-term fix, some districts have a problem because it's a long-term fix to do a garden, as you know. It's not a one-year fix, and there are still a lot of clubs who want a solution in 1 year. But we would work with anybody, and we'd especially like to work with Rotary clubs.
Thank you. So a segue on from that question, after you leave a school, having had it set up, how does it continue? What are its financial needs and expertise needs?
Well, that's why I talked a lot about a program partner who needs to be committed, because we actually don't go in, so we don't ever leave. We provide the information, but we have an MOU with that group to enable us to understand what the outcomes are and how much it needs to work. For a school, it needs, for example, the principal at least, and a couple of the head teachers who are there on the long term, and it works well when it's an NGO that are there for the long term, to in fact continue to work with the school, building the garden and sending us reports each year about what's happening, or questions about some of the plants that didn't develop, and we get our agronomists, our volunteer agronomists onto that, and they help them with those kinds of things. So we haven't had any problems where we've delivered information to schools or to communities or to NGOs and they haven't been acted on, because Carolyn, the executive lady in our group, talks to them about that for a long time before we start preparing the documents, to ensure that we have them bought into the idea and the ongoing commitment.
So then how do you track the data that's associated with your various projects around the world?
We've got a questionnaire data set that we send, and that was a problem when I first joined. We weren't getting data back. Since then, in the last 3 years, we are getting more, not all of them, more annual reports with data, as much as some of them can. And you can imagine in some of the very poor areas, it's hard to get much data, but we can usually get enough to let us see that it's making a difference. And as we are known more, and as the areas become more involved with programs in general, I'm sure we'll get more and more data, but it's something that we work on each year.
Thank you. I think we'll wrap up now. Thank you very much for your presentation today, Una Hobday. It's been excellent. We look forward to a long collaboration with Plant Food Solutions.
Food Plant Solutions, yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the correction. Okay.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.